I am not a morning person, that is for sure. I'm not a night person anymore either. I'm not even really middle of the day. I love a good nap. And the cat jump, like that's how I read. And I read that book in one day.
This Closers episode is sponsored by Outfield. Outfield is an industry-leading CRM for sales and marketing organizations across the globe. Outfield helps teams optimize their sales process, gamify their productivity, and increase revenue. Download the Outfield app now and use the promo code CLOSERS for 10% off. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Carlos with Closers Coffee, and today we have Chris Buckner from Mainline. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mainline CEO, co-founder of Fan React, and an Aggie 12 under 12.
Yeah, Aggies, nobody knows what that is, but I'll take it as an accolade if I can, so whatever.
Yeah, it's all building up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to grow my resume as much as possible with stuff that isn't even real, so yeah.
Well, talk to us. The Mainline, where did that concept come from?
Yeah, so my first company that I started was a company called Fan React, which was a sports-only social media application that failed, essentially, and we pivoted to creating these closed system communities, and that worked. And underneath Fan React, we finally started making profit, which was really surprising at the time because we were pre-revenue. 2014, 2015, 2016 was like not a dime. And then in 2017, Fan React made a whole bunch of money. We were very fortunate, had a lot of great partners, and I did the worst thing that you could ever do as a founder. I took all of our profits, and I started another company underneath Fan React with it. And it started from, this is a true story, I was sitting on a couch in 2015, sitting next to my friend, and we were getting ready to watch college football, actually. And instead, on ESPN2, there wasn't any college football on. We were completely wrong. That's how stupid we were. But instead of watching college football, we found ourselves watching Counter-Strike on ESPN2. And I remember saying to him, this is so weird. I'm watching gaming on ESPN, right? And I went, why is this on here? This isn't like, I want to see my sports. I had been a traditional sports guy. And then fast forward 3 hours later and a couple beers in, we were still watching the exact same thing. And it was in that moment, 2015, sitting there on that couch at a friend's house, that I realized the second I get an opportunity to get into esports, I'm going to do it, because and it's the wrong way. Like I joke about this, like when people ask me, hey, will you come speak or will you do an interview? I'm like, sure, but let me tell you how it's going to go. Everything I'm about to share with you is just like what not to do, and then like you can take that for what it's worth. And I've been very fortunate, but I knew in that moment, instead of doing customer research, I just said, I want to get into esports, so I'm just going to get into esports, right? And so long story short, Fan React had some profits, and the second we did, I decided to start Mainline underneath Fan React.
What was the company vision, and how has that evolved into what you offer today?
The term pivoting, I don't know if do you watch Friends?
Yes.
Okay, there's a scene where Ross is trying to carry a couch up the stairs alongside Rachel and Chandler, and he just keeps yelling out, pivot, pivot. And I always think about that because he says pivot like 15 times in that scene, and that's exactly what we did. So when we started Mainline, we thought that we were going to be creating our own kind of like Bleacher Report for esports. We were going to take that closed community technology from Fan React, we were going to license it ourselves, and we were going to create the first ever social platform, not social platform, but community platform for esports. You would have thought I would learn with Fan React, but I didn't. We acqui-hired a company out of South Carolina that had been doing the largest PUBG tournaments in North America.
Okay.
And it was all volunteers. So we brought them in order to like take the next step as a company. Well, what happened was we found out that our tournaments were really what was like getting attention, right? And then it started turning into, wow, our production side of these tournaments that we were hosting, that actually became attractive. And then it became, well, we had to build a technology in order to host our own tournaments. And it was like, well, that technology is now being, asked for in the market really, really quickly. So we pivoted like 5 times in the first 8 months, and we went from being what we thought was going to be a community platform. 4 pivots later, now we're building a tournament software solution that is going to be a game changer in the scene, and that's easy to say. Like when you're when you're a founder of a company, you obviously have to be like very hyperbolic and optimistic. And I don't mean to be so like naive to think that we are creating something that's like revolutionizing the entire esports space. But what we are building is already like kind of like ahead of the game in terms of like the back end. So it was just pivot after pivot after pivot. And I wouldn't doubt by the end of this conversation that we don't pivot again in our company. So it's been quite the journey, just the whole way.
And so you're seeing tremendous investment in collegiate esports.
Well, so the conversation that's had right now is there a bubble in esports? And take my opinion for what it's worth. I think there's absolutely a bubble on the investment side. There's certainly no bubble on the growth of esports. Like, there's nothing I've ever been so sure of in my life than esports is going to continue to grow. Like, it's just going to continue to get huge. On the investment front, I mean, there are some silly numbers out there. I won't say their name, but recently, esports company, does an IPO off of $600,000 in revenue, not EBITDA, and raises $25 million off of a $100 million valuation. Do that multiple, that doesn't even make sense, right? And it's good because it's more action going on in the space, but it's bad because it leads to like kind of unrealistic expectations from an investor, so they become jaded. So meanwhile, we are trying to do things right by having a recurring revenue, monthly and annual recurring revenue, in order to show like, no, we have a revenue model that isn't based 100% off of sponsorship and advertising, because the esports space right now is led 60% of the revenue in esports is sponsorship and advertising. So we know that that's the way it's going to be, but that's a fickle market, right? Like it ebbs and flows. So having monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue is really important. So kind of going back to your original question, like what is there a bubble essentially? I think it's really clear that there's a bubble on the investment side, but the good news is esports is only continue to grow. And then going even deeper into your question about colleges, there's clearly huge investment in the space. ESPN running the Collegiate eSports Championship, that opened everybody's eyes in colleges, and it's really funny. It was like when you turn on the light and the cockroaches start. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was like that. ESPN just turned on the light, and all of us companies, Mainline included, all of us went, oh, we got to do something. Like let's figure this out. And we're right in the middle of everybody scrambling and bumping into each other, and like. It's exciting, but it's also stressful, and competitors come out of the woodwork, and thankfully we're doing things a little bit ahead of schedule. In fact, I would say that we might be a little bit early, but at least we're not late. So that was a long way of saying, yeah, there's a lot of investment being pumped into the collegiate esports market right now.
That's awesome. And so talk about some of your strategic partners today and some of the goals that you're out to accomplish together.
So the biggest partner that we've had to date by far is ESPN. They're the ones that like kind of put us on the map. And with ESPN, what we did for them is we ran their Collegiate eSports Championship from a production and broadcast standpoint. So we did their weekly TV shows, which was really, really cool. We actually did them on set at our offices every Friday night. Super stressful, 45 minutes pre-produced, but then 15 minutes live. And when I say live, we were literally doing a live segment, and we were shooting it to Bristol, and they were distributing it to ESPN2, ESPN Plus, YouTube Gaming, all of these different sites. And so it was so stressful, and we had the ESPN execs sitting there next to us at our offices, and you're just like, well, if this goes down, like there goes my company, right? Yes. And but they were great. It all worked out really well. And so we helped them from some tournament organization, but a lot of the broadcast and production, and that really kind of opened up every door that we possibly could hope for. But when it comes to the partnerships with the individual schools, so A&M, my alma mater, was the first partner that we ever had, and that opened the door to a lot of different universities in the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10. We're trying to get into the Big East right now, where it's really, really cool when, I'll just give like a overview of kind of like our sales process, since this is Closer's Coffee. In our world, we know exactly who our target demographic is, right? We know our target market is these universities. Well, there's only a finite number of universities, right? And it's a large number, but it's still finite, like there's a cap, right? And so we had to be very, very strategic in this process. And what's been really eye-opening and cool about this entire experience is, we have a 44% response rate to cold emails, and that's response, not open rate, response rate. We've done over 50 demos just in the first 4 weeks of selling our new product, And so and we haven't had a no. Instead, what we've had is there any way we can do this next semester? So it's been really, really cool. And I'm not saying like we're taking off and we have every school in the entire world, but what we certainly are like just in 5, so to date, after we received our Series A, which we'll probably talk about later, we really have only started our sales process, the real sales process, 5 weeks ago. That's it.
Wow.
And we've been that lucky. So we proved our model, if you will, with A&M in the spring and with ESPN. But the fall is when we're starting to onboard like multiple schools type deal. So it's been kind of a wild ride. But yeah, that's so in terms of partners, we do that. And then we've partnered with a lot of like PUBG was our first partner, and Bluehole was the publisher behind that. We partnered with Splitgate, which is a 1047 game. We've partnered with a game called Islands of Nine. We've partnered with Clutch Gaming and League of Legends. We've partnered with Blizzard and Tespa. And so we're kind of all everywhere right now. Like we've been very fortunate. It's kind of the coolest feeling to date in Mainline is when we were talking to people and they didn't know we were Mainline, and then we would talk about our business a little bit, and they would say, "You should talk to a company called Mainline." That's always a cool feeling, right? Like,
absolutely.
And that's just started happening. So. In terms of our partners, I'd say like ESPN was the one that really kind of launched us pretty quickly.
Yeah. So you've got a very diverse group of partners.
Yeah, very.
Right. You've got publishers. You've got institutions. You've got platforms. Mm-hmm. What is the overall mission? Where do you see success?
Sure, and that's a great question because I've always struggled in both FanReact and Mainline. Really in everything I've ever done with, I've always struggled with focus. I think that I'm like, I can do everything, right? Like I'm just going to try it all, and that's such a stupid way to go about business. I think it's a great thing for life, but it's a horrible thing for business. And but for the first time really ever in my professional career of having a company, we for the first time have like true focus. And so the product itself is going to be the future of the company. There's no doubt. We'll continue to do production and broadcast as a marketing tool for our brand, right? But my sales team, all they're concentrated on right now is our product. And so the future of the product is it's cool because it's kind of simple in terms of we have it spelled out, our product roadmap for the next year. It's done. So the idea is we're going to start with colleges. We're going to allow for colleges to run internal tournaments only. Next semester, they will now be able to do collegiate, intercollegiate tournaments if they want to, right? The next semester, now we're integrating, Twitch or Discord into the platform in order to have more time spent on app, more monthly active users. The schools start running official tournaments, not only internally, but across, multiple schools or even conferences. But the end game is to establish ourselves as the unified and only real brand for a collegiate tournament software solution. And then we open it up to everybody. So we start going down into high schools using the same platform because all that is a funnel into this new collegiate thing. And then it's path to pro after college where they can find themselves getting recruited perhaps through our platform as they move out. And I have this like cool, I don't know if it's a dream, that might be a little bit over the top, but the idea of a student after they leave the university, why can't they still play in those tournaments, right? Like I would love if I could, if I was good enough, be able to play on the A&M football team until I was, 30 years old. This is an opportunity to continue to play. And sure, you'll have like your sanctioned tournaments that are student only, sure. But that doesn't mean you can't have alumni tournaments. You can't have alumni where they're facing off with the people that are at the school. So the product is always going to be the future, and it's going to grow into what we call not open source in the traditional terms of development, but it's an open source where people can create their own tournaments, much like, we're not naive. We have competitors out there that are free to use, but they don't tie into the universities, and they're like Faceit, Smash, GG, Challenge, Battlefy. Those are out there, and we will get there at some point where we let people create their own tournaments. But right now, the concentration is like full partnerships with the university. So that's kind of like the strategy moving forward.
It sounds like, from a growth perspective, you really see how to grow your audiences and really provide value beyond just where they're at today.
Sure, and it's the reason it's not easy. I mean, every single day is like a nightmare in terms of like, am I doing it right? Right? Am I concentrating on the things that are important? But the good news about the esports world and the people that are in this space, whether it's the players themselves or the brands or whatever, is they make it easy because they're so vocal and it has to be organic that they're telling you all the time, like, this is exactly what we need. So we're able to use that information in order to build our product roadmap. So it is kind of nice to just have a built-in focus group. I mean, it's kind of like, can you imagine when ESPN was getting started and they were doing like traditional sports, right? Sure, they probably had Nielsen ratings or whatever they were using back then, but they certainly didn't have an engine where the people that were watching the game could give feedback immediately to what the broadcast looks like, right? Well, now with Twitch, like, you are getting immediate feedback on the platform that you're doing tournaments on, right? Or that's just an example. We have all this information so quick that everybody's just your focus group. And so now you are spending your time taking all the information that you're receiving from your focus group, your user base, and you're able to say, like, well, we know exactly what the next feature needs to be based upon not only what the school needs, but what the student needs. And it's an equation instead of like a subjective idea type.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, you're optimizing the data real time.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not saying anything here that's like revolutionary. Like, yes, data runs our world, and everybody is working on not only data aggregation and reading the information from the data, but also the AI that comes along with it. So you don't even have to read the data. Instead, the data is just telling you immediately what you need to hear. I am a non-tech guy. It is my CTO who is the mastermind behind all the technology. But I think I just have a passion for building cool stuff. Is kind of like the idea. Like, I'm going to get so off topic, but there's actually a quote from a movie that got me here today, and it worked, and it's so stupid. Have you ever seen Bruce Almighty?
Yes.
Okay. There's this totally, random line in the movie. It probably stuck with nobody else on this planet, but he says, "I'm not okay with a mediocre life," and when he's talking to her. And that line in that movie, I remember watching it, I remember everything. That line changed my life because I was working kind of like a mediocre job. And I was like, why work a mediocre job when I can go try and do it on my own? And the reason, I know I'm off topic a little bit, but just getting back to, this is a really cool industry where the people are able to provide you with not only the feedback that you need, but also the excitement you need to love your job. So that's what.
Well, you talk about, having a mediocre job and, how you've...
Sorry, old jobs, y'all were great, but yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about your background and how you pivoted from working a traditional 9-to-5 to taking on this path.
I have the dumbest path ever. It's funny because when I get asked to speak a lot to colleges specifically, because I think they know, like, all right, see, kids, this is what you don't want to be like. No, but it's more about the path I took because it was very, very, very untraditional. So I saw this movie. By the way, can you tell the theme of my life is based off of movies? Like, that's so sad. Yeah. But I saw this movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Okay.
It was my first movie date of my entire life. But anyway, I thought I was going to marry Kate Upton. But I wanted his life. Like, I wanted everything about it. I wanted to be an ad exec at a big ad agency. That's what I aspired to do. So right after college, I'll try to make this quick. Right after college, I went and worked in Alaska because I knew I was never going to get to do that again. That was just for fun. I flew back into Houston and took a job like one day after flying back after 3 months of working in Alaska with a radio station selling ads, because I thought, well, there's a step in the door, and I couldn't get my foot in the door with any of the big ad agencies. Like, they just wouldn't pay attention. It's very, very competitive.
Yes.
And I didn't have an advertising major. I didn't do any internships at ad. I just didn't do anything right. Like, I did nothing right but I was an entitled punk, kid that was like, why doesn't GSD&M like me? Why doesn't McGarrett Jesse like me? Why doesn't BBDO? Why doesn't Whedon Kennedy? Like, how come I can't get in? And it was because I was an idiot and I never prepared. I didn't do the steps that were really needed. So anyway, worked in radio sales. I was so bad at it. I was so pathetically bad at it. But I loved who I worked with and worked for. So I went and turned in my 2 weeks, and they were like, no, you should stay. You're and I'm like, I haven't sold anything. Like, I can't. I'm really bad at this. Left, and I'm just telling you the very unconventional path that I went down. But worked for a company called Vaughn Construction. I didn't do anything construction related, but I ran their profit center, like a sub company underneath in the company, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened. This is how weird life is. It was one of the best things that's ever happened because I got to run a business at 23 years old, and I had a backing from the parent company, but I had at one point, I think after 5 months, I hadn't talked to anybody in the company. Like,
wow.
I was, besides my employees. And it was just such an amazing experience. And Mike Simpson, he was my boss, and he was one of the owners of the company, still is. Just one of the greatest people in terms of management style, where he let me have full autonomy. And then he also, like, when I made mistakes, he was like, yeah, you messed up, now go fix it. Like, it was cool. Oh, it's just great company.
Held you accountable.
Yeah.
But let you make your own mistakes.
Oh, first month, I made like a $250,000 mistake.
Wow.
Huge. And I went straight to him. I said, oh my gosh, I made this huge mistake. And he's like, okay, well, how are you going to fix it? He wasn't mad. It wasn't a test. It was like, all right, well, how are you going to fix it? I was like, well, let me go figure it out. She's like, all right, bye. But he wasn't doing it like or to like get rid of me. He was just saying like, yeah, go fix it. And so I worked there. Again, none of this, I mean, it helped long term because it helped me with my current business. So I left there because I was like, I still want to do advertising. So I went and I finally got into a small ad agency, worked there for a couple years. And then it was in that time period, that movie, that quote, I was interviewing at Facebook. I had made it like 5 interviews in, and it was what I thought was going to be my dream job, which was I was going to work in advertising at Facebook, but I was going to be the liaison between the ad agencies and Facebook. Okay. So I got to work directly with the ad agency, and I got to work directly with Facebook to be like, here's how we're going to make this. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was amazing. And I got turned down. And I wasn't devastated. I was just more like, this is stupid. I'm going to do it on my own. Yeah. So you and I talked before this, where I told you that I wouldn't even call myself an entrepreneur. I would say I'm entrepreneurial. Meaning, like, I wasn't the kid that was out there trying to run a lemonade stand when I was, younger. And I think that gets a bad rap. Like, a lot of people say, like, once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, or like, that's the kid that tried to do his own business when he was 5. No, I was an idiot. I was trying to see how much mac and cheese I could eat when I was 5. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But and then you fast forward, and I just got tired of kind of like, I got to take these steps like in this process, and I'm working at the small ad agency, which was great, but I knew I was never going to be, the CEO of the company, like, ever, right? And so I was like, I'm just going to do this on my own. Again, naive, like, and stupid, but it was in that time span that I just realized, like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to do it on my own, and I've gotten really, really lucky. Like, over the top lucky, and I mean hard work. I like to work hard, but there's no doubt that I've been pretty lucky.
What was your biggest learning with your first startup?
I'd like to think that I failed fast, maybe not fast enough, but the story that I do like telling everybody is, it was kind of like the life-changing moment. In June of 2016, we were running out of our seed funding. I hadn't paid myself in 4 months, like a dime, and it was going to fail. And I kind of threw a Hail Mary last second to a new investor, potential new investor, who got interested. And kind of last second, he calls me. He's like, hey man, I'm really sorry. I remember everything. I was standing in my room. I was looking out this window. It was raining outside. It's just like in a movie, it's a really, really terrible movie. But I'm looking, and he calls and he says, I'm really sorry, man, but your previous investors just aren't going to make it worth it for us. So like, we're going to have to pass. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm a failure. And which is so stupid because startups fail, like, that's the thing. And anyway, but I refused to fail. So I was sitting there crying, called my dad, and I was like, oh, company's going under. And my dad, being my dad, he was just like, get over it. Either go fix it or go start something else. Like, who cares? Like, you're young, you're driven, like, fix it. So I got off the phone. Felt like such a little baby, or another B word. And I called the investor who was interested, and he didn't know, but I had our old investors already on the line. And I just said, hey guys, let's work this out. This is my life. I want to make this happen. We can't let this company go down the drain, and we clearly see that there's something happening here. So they agreed on this phone call, like, all right, let's meet in Austin, let's go to dinner, and let's see if we can figure this out. And we went to dinner, and they like got along so well and they knew everybody together that they finally worked out this deal where it was like, okay, you're actually going to keep part of the company, but we're going to take a majority of the company. And meanwhile, there's another learning. I'm just sitting there going like this. So the company's going to survive, right? And meanwhile, they're like, yes, but all your equity is ours. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea. I just cared about the company, continuing. On the investment side, or like the ownership and the board structure and all that, I was stupid and giving away way too much of my company up front for at least getting rid of some of the risk associated. We got in 2014 we got our $350,000 worth of seed funding. That was our very, very first money that we got in, and I gave up like half of the company at that time for $350,000 in seed funding. That's absurd. Fast forward, I'm in Mainline, I'm in my Series A. You can probably guess how much I've been diluted since that time, because Mainline being a subsidiary of FanReact, the ownership stays the same because technically it was a part of FanReact.
Sure.
And sure, it becomes this new company. But anyway, my biggest learning, my biggest lesson I guess I learned is just like, it's your company, like hold on to it. You know what I mean? Like, and then the second thing I would tell every single person is like, boy, if you don't want a roller coaster like lifestyle, don't do a startup.
And so, you talk about the startup life and the highs and lows. Is there anything personally that you want to share?
Like about being an entrepreneur, or
anything.
Yeah, I mean, just so the grass is not always greener. We talked about this, right? Like, it's so ridiculous. And I don't know if we're going to talk on this a little bit more, but it is something I'm so passionate about. Is like, my dad growing up was like, don't pay attention to the Joneses, right? Like, just don't. Concentrate on yourself, and that's all that matters, right? And he was really great about that. But all of us have it inherently built in that we're going to see something over here and go, I want that, right? So
absolutely.
I have always done that, where I see a super successful friend of mine, and of course I'm happy for them, but I'm like, oh, what it must be like to have that much money, more importantly, that much security. There's no security in the startup space at all. But they see me and they see we raised $6.8 million and they go, oh my God, Chris Buckner, he's killing it, he's crushing it. And I'm like, do you think I'm taking that $6.8 million? No, that is for my run, and I've got to work my butt off in order to make sure that lasts for the end of time, right? Or grow the company to the point where we do our beat. And I have people all the time now, just in the last year, where they're like, oh my God, I've been seeing all the stuff you're doing, your sock company on the side, FanReact, Mainline, the radio show, you're just killing it. And I'm like, I have not killed anything. Like, I am in the early stages of trying to do something where I can kill it, but like, they see it because, as we talked about, we use social media as a marketing tool, right? Like, I use it as a marketing tool for my company. And, but everybody sees it as like, I'm not gonna post, although I have tried before, I'm not going to post the really crappy parts of my life, especially when it comes to the business, because it's a marketing tool. You don't want to say like, yeah, we struggled on sales for the third week in a row. You're never going to post that as a business owner, right? And but I did try for a little bit. I tried this thing called, I can't remember what the name of, I tried to start another revolution, jokingly, where it was like, post the crappy things that are happening just one day a week. So like, post a picture of your dishwasher broken. Like, post a picture of you spilled some food on your shirt. Post a picture of, maybe not the picture where you look really great, but the picture where you're like kind of blinking. Like, just for one day, everybody, the whole world, one day, post the stuff that stinks so that everybody can get a reality check of like, maybe it isn't always like rainbows and butterflies, right? And so I don't even remember what the question was. But I am passionate. Oh yeah, I was share something like personal about business. Like, no matter where you are in your stage of business, like, take a moment to go. 5 years ago, if you were to tell me I was here, would I be like happy? And like right now, yeah, it's the most stressful time of my entire life. But if you told me 5 years ago, like, that I would be doing any of this stuff, I'd be like, hell yeah, like, enjoy that and appreciate what you've done just for yourself, and don't keep looking around. Like, it's so easy to get distracted. I mean, think about how stupid it is that there are people out there, and yes, I am going to dog on social influencers. And I, by the way, I'm dogging on them because I wish I was one of them, right? Like, I wish that I could just go to a beach every day and post pictures of myself,
yes,
and then get paid. But like, that's just not, it's not realistic in the sense of like, that should be what I aspire to, right? But it's a real thing, right? Like people make a bunch of money. So I just tell people like, try to stay in your lane and concentrate on what you're doing. And I struggle with it like on a daily basis where I'm like, look at that company, right? And meanwhile, I'm like, wait, I've got a great group of managers. My employees are amazing. We're building a really cool product. I get to work in eSports. Like I'll walk around my office and I'm like, are you working or are you just playing games? But that's like the cool life I get to live in, right? That's what we do. And so no matter if you're just starting and you're doing it all from your pocket and rather than an investor's, like just appreciate what you have, the hard work that you're putting in and that kind of stuff rather than like, I'm a worrier. I'm a horrible worrier. And I try so hard to just be like, just take a minute and go, this is good. And don't look around. Like, don't always be like comparing yourself.
You have to enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Have to.
Yeah. Mine's a roller coaster that I'm constantly like, what was that movie, Final Destination? I feel like I'm getting ready to fly off like all the time, but I mean, I don't think I would have it any other way. Like, I think it was made clear very early on in my life that I wasn't meant for like a desk job. And some people, they are made for that, and it's fantastic. And they're probably a lot happier than I am on a consistent basis, but I love my violent highs, you know what I mean? And my lows, I'll just go watch a movie, you know? So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So our next segment, we're gonna play I Got 5 on it.
Okay.
So I Got 5 on it is where we're going to highlight your Mount Rushmore of whatever the topic is.
Okay.
So you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's hear your top 5 video games.
Okay, so I'm gonna make this shocking announcement that I've never been like a hardcore gamer, except for I was very, very into a specific style of game. So if you were gonna ask me like my 5 favorite games of all time, it would be like in order. Number 1 would be NCAA Football 2014, the greatest game in the history of life, right? And then number 2 would be NCAA Football 2013, and then number 3 would be NCAA Football 2012, 2011, and 2010. I didn't play anything else. Like that was it. That was my life, and like I could play on Heisman and win games 145-0 because I got so good at finding the like the glitches in the games that it was just I could be the cruddiest team on the entire game and play Alabama on Heisman and beat them by 50 points because I played so much that I was like, well, I know for a fact that I can do this play or this play. I can audible, and I know that I'm going to get a certain amount of yards. That's it. Those were my 5 favorite games.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I identify as a bro gamer.
Yep.
Right. So I love all of the sports games, 2K, Madden, FIFA, and every now and then I'll throw in a first-person shooter.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Cool. Next one is, what are your top 5 favorite books?
Okay, so I'm terrible about this, and what's funny is we just talked about this off camera. Was so Shoe Dog is by far number 1. Like it is. I read the book in one day, couldn't put it down. There's a very specific moment in the book. I hope I'm not like. Spoiler alert, do I say that, I guess?
No,
right now?
I think we're good.
Okay, good. I mean, the book's
Great
been
book,
out for forever.
by the
Great
way.
book.
Yes, I'm a sneakerhead.
Okay.
So that was like
See, I'm not. Even though I am wearing just like awesome kicks right now.
I do like those.
I love these shoes. I actually have 2 pairs of them. I like them that much. Same exact color, everything. I don't give a crud about shoes, but it's the way that he grew his business where he just went like all in all the time. Like everything was, what's the next step? What's the next step? And he never settled. But the part of the book that really like kind of got me was, again, spoiler alert, the employees were like not cashing their own checks because they believed, and they knew they were in a little bit of trouble, but they believed in where they were going so much so he didn't ask them to not do that, right? Like, and he's walking through the warehouse essentially that they were in with the broken window, and it's cold, and he sees one of his employees' desk drawers is open and wind's whipping around in there, and he sees the check in her desk, and you're just like, God, I hope that I inspire my management group to the level that he was able to do that, where they knew, we just have to do this in order to keep the company going, right? And I don't know, it just was really, really super moving for me. So Shoe Dog number 1, Where the Red Fern Grows actually is in my top 5, which is funny because this is what we were talking about right before. But Where the Red Fern Grows is just such like a classic. And the last time I read it, I was in 7th grade. Like I read it 10 times when I was a kid. But in 7th grade, and I remember I cried like a lot, and even in the last time I read it, which is funny. So again, that's like a stupid example because it's such a kid's book, but it's so great. Outliers was really great because well, I wouldn't have listed it in my top 5 until what came out recently, where he admitted that he was wrong in a way about it. So like, it's not 10,000 hours, right? Like, in order to get to where that point in your life to be being a pro at something, because now we have accessibility to whether it's technology or the resources that it's quicker, right? And but the book's amazing. Like it goes through, you know, everything like the hockey players and how they're able to why they were able to succeed because of their birthdays, right? Like the certain levels. 4 is a book called Sapiens, which is kind of, I don't know, have you read this one? Nova is his name. What's his name? It doesn't matter. Sapiens is one of the most mind-blowing books I've ever read because it just like explains how ridiculous life is in that the book starts where it's talking about a legal document and how that legal document really doesn't mean anything. I mean, it means nothing at all. But at the same time, everybody understands, yeah, sure, it's on a piece of paper, but that's, you know, as good as gold or whatever it might be. But it goes everything like, why did we start developing money? Well, because people couldn't carry 500 bags of grain on their back when they were trying to barter, right? Like, and it just walks through every part of life where oh my God, this all makes so much sense. So Sapiens is probably number 4. And by the way, these might be in all different orders. And then probably number 5 would be something that reminds me, I know where the red fern grows. By the way, you can tell I'm not like a pro reader in the sense that like the books that I choose are like very inspirational and life-changing and all that stuff. I like the ones that make me like a little bit nostalgic, but like, I don't know, maybe going back to something like when you were a kid and there was this one, do you remember The Stinky Cheese Man? Do you remember that book?
No,
okay.
It's
so stupid. And it was like this book that for the rest of my life, every time I see it, the cover is iconic, all this kind of stuff. But it's a book that reminds me of my childhood. And so that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but it's always one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, well, you got to have the nostalgia.
Yeah.
Right?
And what's funny is I hate nostalgia. Like, I don't like looking at old pictures, but I don't mind feeling the nostalgia of a book. But old pictures bother me. I hate it.
Interesting.
Well, because you can't ever go back there.
Very true.
You know, like you see maybe my pictures from college, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember how awesome that was, and I'll never have that again. I mean, I'll have 2 beers nowadays, and I'm like, well, looks like I'm not going to be productive tomorrow, you know? And then I'm looking at a picture of myself where I was like, I think I had like 44 beers that night, you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
and you go, I'll never have that ever again. And I know this is my problem. I should be looking at the future of like, oh, I'll have kids and I'll get married, and those are the things that matter. I'm like, no, I want those beers. I want to be able to shotgun a beer. But yeah, so anyway.
Our next segment we call Let's Get Loose With It.
Okay.
And this is all about just kind of giving us some off-the-cuff answers.
So good, yeah. Hope you have the beep button ready.
So tell us, what's your favorite karaoke song?
So I used to be proud of this until I grew up, and now it's not something I don't think I should be very proud of, but I secretly am. I actually have a go-to that is no matter what, no matter where I am, I do it. And I actually do it with my best friend. That sounds weird, but
shout out to best friend.
Yeah, Andrew Smith, best friend in the world. He's my brother. But we do this Forgot About Dre, right?
Okay.
And he's Dr. Dre, and I'm Eminem. And we do it everywhere we go. Matter of fact, when we're in Denver, we'll probably find a karaoke bar and try to do it. Because when we do it, I'm not saying that we're like really great, but I do impersonate Eminem. Like I try to get like really down to the level that it's like, oh, and it has gotten to the point where like usually when we go do it somewhere, the crowd when I hop into the Eminem part is like, oh, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Like you can see them go, okay, that's not. And I'm not bragging, by the way. But I've honed this to the point that we go to this bar here in Houston called Christian's Tailgate. Used to go there all the time, and every single Friday night that we went, I always got at least a free drink from the owner after we did the song. So
that means something.
Oh, it does. And if it was a really good night, like if the crowd was really good and we killed it, we'd get an open tab.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. And when you're 25, 26, 27, getting an open tab, you know, from singing a song was like, I am God. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we haven't done it probably in over a year, but we'll probably try to find somewhere in Denver just to like, for nostalgia's sake, to go do it. But Forgot About Dre, no questions, every single time. That's the first one that I'm doing, and then I might do like a Bohemian Rhapsody if I have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I throw mine in real quick.
Yeah.
Mine is Return of the Mac.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
Right? It's just
Return
a classic.
of the Mac.
Oh, you know.
I wish I had a voice. That would have been awesome.
So next question on Let's Get Loose with It. Tell me an embarrassing childhood story that just resonates.
Well, I'll call college childhood. Is that okay? College childhood?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Fair.
There was a girl that I dated. There was a girl I was really into. This is my, God, it must have been sophomore, junior year. I just turned 21, so whenever that is. And I had gotten invited to a crush party for her, Tri-Delts. Shout out to them, I guess. I don't know why, but anyway, this girl, her name's Katie. I was really, really into her, like super into her. I don't even think she knew I existed. You know what I mean? Like, and she had actually dated a couple of my friends, which looking back, I'm like, oh, this is so bad. Anyway, got invited to a crush party, and I was dancing with her at, I think it was called Salty Dog is the name of the bar in College Station. I don't even know if it's around anymore, but we were dancing, and I'm not a good dancer at all, like, especially if it comes to, like, what do you call it, like,
your club music.
Yeah, club music. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm like, what do I do with my hands?
Improvising.
Yeah. And so I was, and this is not inappropriate. We weren't like dancing inappropriate, but I was behind her during a part of the song, and I was just like kind of doing this, like, yeah, what am I doing type thing, and I was chewing gum, and I felt a like strand of her hair, like just happened to like make it like kind of like graze against right here, and just like when I was fishing in Alaska, it was like a lure to a fish, right, to a salmon. This piece of hair perfectly just captured that gum, and it just went whoop, right out of my mouth and into her hair, and it like went like into her hair, and I was like, oh my god. So I like tried to like, without her really noticing, I tried to get it out, and then she realizes kind of what's going on, and she was such a sweetheart. She was like, oh no, did you get gum in my hair? I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And she was like, no big deal. And she puts her hair over it, whatever. And it just got way worse. And then to the point that I ended up going up to the bar and I asked for 2 handfuls of ice. And the guy was like, what the hell do you need ice for? And I said, well, and he's like, did you get gum stuck in a girl's hair? Because like, why would you be asking for handfuls, not like a cup or anything? I was like, yeah. Long story short, the next day she had to cut it out. But we ended up dating. Like 2 weeks later, we started dating. And so the joke I always made after that was I would go to bars and just take gum and throw it in girls' hairs when I was trying to find a date. But it was horrifically embarrassing because like I could see the moment before it all happened. It was like flashing before my eyes of, well, there goes my chance with her getting gum. Like, and I tried to pull on it and stuff. Oh, it was so bad. Very embarrassing.
But you got a second date out of it, right?
I did, yeah. We dated for like 3 months or 4 months. So, I mean, I guess it paid off. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you sharing everything, giving us an overview of the company, giving us some insight into you as an entrepreneur.
Really interesting personal life, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been great. Thank you so much, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.